I'm Stephen Minkler. I'm the Academic Dean at Middlesex Community College, and I'm really happy to have a team of folks with me from the college here to make a presentation to you today about transitional strategies, student success initiatives, and community partnerships. Before we begin, I've been around instructional technology a lot in my lifetime. The first half of my career was doing that. And these iPads are really cool, but it's really kind of spooky watching these things follow you. So as we change presenters, we'll have to hand off the automatic beacon to the next person. But I'm glad we're able to record these sessions because just really the amount and the quality of the presentations today is phenomenal. So I really congratulate the committee for putting this together and for all the presenters. So again, I'm Stephen Minkler, the Academic Dean. Joining me today is Dr. Donna Bontatibus, who's chair of our English department. Catherine Hostetter, who is English Instructional Support Specialist. Teresa DeSouza, who is the Math Instructional Support Specialist. And Tami, Cristopher, who's Director of our Meriden Center, and she's also a coordinator of many of our community partnerships for our college. So today we're going to talk a little bit about the background for our program that we're going to present to you. Catherine and Teresa will each talk a little bit about the Fast Track Math and English workshops. Donna and Tami will talk about the community partnerships we've developed and the fact that we've modeled our transitional strategies workshops after another program we have called Intensive College Transitional Pilot, and how we've joined with the adult education partners in Meriden, Middletown, and Wallingford to present this program to students, and we'll wrap up with some Q&A at the end. So my job is to give you, besides introducing my colleagues, is to give you a little bit of the background of why we're here. Now, we heard a little bit earlier today from our guest presenter about the fact that we need to have some clearer pathways for our students to get into college. And we've experienced for many years, as you know, the challenges of having students who are not quite yet prepared for college-level work. We see them because we are open admissions institutions, we're open access, and that's really important to us as community colleges. So when Public Act 1240 first came around, that's sort of the big push to have us do workshops of this type on a grand scale in Connecticut. When Public Act 1240 was first introduced, some of you who may remember, the initial drafts of that were to eliminate all developmental education from the community college and the university system. But there were enough advocates in the legislature working together in partnership with the system administration to dial that back and to say how necessary developmental education is for so many of our students. Kind of lost in that shuffle were transitional level or the really entry level programs for students. And those, thankfully, through actually the advocacy in particular of Elsa Nunez, the president of Eastern, to make sure that this kind of a program was available to students who really needed that step up from where they stood based on their placement scores or their previous experience to then even be ready for developmental ed or perhaps even a refresher to get them into college level programming. So fortunately at Middlesex, we participated in a program called Intensive College Transitions, and Tami was involved in that. She'll talk about that a little bit later. But we were beginning that in the year 2011 at Middlesex, and it kind of blended perfectly with some plans that we later did to roll out a transitions program. At this time, around the time that Public Act 1240 was being discussed in early 2012, we began to institutionalize the use of supplemental instructors, second hands in the classroom, so to speak. Supplemental instructors being professional educational assistants and classroom assistants who were student peer tutors who would be in the classroom together with our English and math faculty. Up to that point, we relied mostly on grant funding and trying to scrape together money from other parts of the institution, and we made a commitment at that time to institutionalize the use of that support staff in our English and math courses. We piloted non-credit workshops, what we're going to describe today, in the summer of 2013, and we more fully formalized that through the creation of the instructional support specialist positions, which are embodied in Catherine and Teresa, and they'll talk a little bit about their functions. And we fully implemented the fast track workshops with supplemental support after they were hired, and they've done a terrific job with that. So to kind of lead us off with a little on what happens in the English department, I'm going to turn it over to Catherine to talk about the fast track workshops in English.
This is also my first experience wearing a microphone, so It's very interesting technology. So as Dean Minkler mentioned, both Teresa and I were hired in the summer of 2014. So when I came aboard, I had three main responsibilities, which Teresa also has the equivalent of in the math department. So one of the main responsibilities, specifically in the summer, is teaching these non-credit fast-track workshops. The course description is up here, but I wanted to actually spend most of the next slide unpacking that description. So as far as the logistics go, these workshops meet for a total of 24 contact hours. So we divided that into 3 hours per day over the course of 8 days. Generally, they run from Monday through Thursday, and we found that the most successful time frames are in the mornings and the evenings. So we try to target students basically between their work schedules. So if they work during regular work hours, then they would go possibly to the evening. If they work a middle shift or part-time, then they can come in the morning. And we do offer workshops both at our Middletown campus and at the Meriden Center. Now, one of the main requirements of the workshops is that students do retake the Accuplacer assessment on the last day, and those scores then determine their placement into their English classes. And we do only have them retake the portion of the Accuplacer for the workshop that they're taking. So if they're taking the English workshop, they'll retake the English portion of the Accuplacer at the end. If they're retaking the math workshop, they'll retake the math portion of the Accuplacer. As far as the design of my English Fast Track workshops, I really wanted them to cover two primary areas. So one was to go over the basic skills that are taught in our developmental English course, our English 096 class. But then we have this other side, which is that they do need to retake the Accuplacer at the end of the workshop. So it's equally important for them to understand what the Accuplacer actually is, what the sections are that they're going to be taking, what the reading comprehension means, what the sentence skills means, what those directions are for the types of questions, and then also how to go about answering and approaching those questions. So Accuplacer preparation is a part of the workshop. Then the other main part of the workshop is broken down into reading skills, grammar skills, and writing skills. So as far as grammar goes, when I was designing the workshop, I actually sat down, I took the Accuplacer, and I wrote down every single piece of grammar that the sentence skills questions covered, and found a primary need to go over basic sentence structure, verbs, subject-verb agreement. Misplaced modifiers is a huge element of the Accuplacer that students usually don't necessarily know what a misplaced modifier is, and then parallel structure. For the reading aspect, I tried to achieve a balance between what is discussed in English 096 and what they would need to be able to approach the reading comprehension portion of the Accuplacer. So we talk a lot about the structure of a basic paragraph. We look for main ideas versus details, stated main ideas versus implied main ideas, and how to distinguish those pieces within a paragraph with a high level of vocabulary. We also work on annotation skills and also work on summarizing and evaluating different content. And then the final piece that I really wanted students to be able to get at least an introduction to was basic essay writing. So within the workshop, we go through a reader response essay, which is one of the two styles of essay writing that we cover in our 096 class. So I give them a reading, we work on summarizing it, we work on going through how to agree or disagree with the author's position, and then thinking of supporting points. So that is the basic structure of the workshops. And as far as challenges go, I think the biggest challenge for students taking the workshop is the time frame. I just mentioned a lot of things, a very large amount of curriculum. So for some students, it is very difficult to not only be exposed to, but to attempt to retain that information in essentially 2 weeks. For other students, the time frame is actually too long. So some students who sign up for the workshops were placed into a developmental level course, but it's because they didn't prepare for the Accuplacer or because they misread one of the directions. So for them, sometimes they're actually really ready to go within maybe a week. So there is this juggling between students who need more time and students who potentially need less time. From the instructor side, I think my biggest challenges are managing those students that have very diverse skill levels. We often reference the idea of a one-room schoolhouse, which is what these workshops are. So you get students of all different skill sets, of different capabilities, They also have a wide variety of needs and goals. So some students will sign up for the workshops because they simply want to brush up on their reading and grammar skills. Other students are very determined to place into a different level. So again, managing those can be tricky at times. And of course, and this is something that I think is true for pretty much any instructor, is that students' motivation can vary greatly. So something that we try, I know for both workshops, to emphasize is really dedication, and that if you come and you come prepared and you're going through the process and you're doing the work, that there will be progress. We can't guarantee that you're going to actually jump to that next level of English class, but we can hopefully help you to at least feel more comfortable in whatever English class you're taking when you enroll in the next semester. Some of the ways also that we've tried to combat these challenges is we do have the adult transitional strategies packages, which Donna is going to be talking about later. So for lower skill level students, we try to encourage them to take those non-credit longer workshops before going into an English 096. And we've also worked to start developing faster fast track workshops, which are kind of upper level workshops. So for those students who really did just get almost, you could say, misplaced, they could take a smaller workshop that focuses specifically on grammar, specifically on reading, or specifically on writing, and then move into, hopefully, the class that they desire. And as far as successes go, this is a snapshot of last summer's workshops. So we had a total of 8 workshops, and 76 students successfully completed the workshop, which means that they did take the AccuPlacer assessment at the end. So of those 76 students, 43 students scored higher on both the reading comprehension and the sentence skills, which is about 54% of the students who enrolled in the workshop. 29 students showed progression in one of the 2 levels, so some of those students actually scored the same in the other, and then some students did score lower in one or the other. But that does show that students are learning something through the workshops, that they are making progress. And then out of those 76 students, 36 of those students then moved into a different level, which is then about 46%. And as far as registration goes, 58 of those 76 students who completed the workshop registered for an English class in the fall, and then 33 of those 58 students passed that English class with a C or higher. One thing to keep in mind is that the cutoff scores for our accelerated learning program is a 72. So students who score in the 40s can progress and score in the 60s and still be placed in the same class. So it is a challenge, and it can be discouraging for those students, but we try to emphasize that they are then going to be better prepared for taking English 096. So I'm going to hand the microphone over to Teresa. Oh, I forgot about student successes. Quotes. So these are quotes from actual students who took the workshop. And what we tried to do, these are from actual course evaluations. We tried to look for ones that talk specifically about the workshop itself. So one student wrote, "This class helped me learn things that I didn't in high school. In my opinion, it has helped me feel better and more prepared to start college. This class really did help me with understanding reading comprehension. And then taking this course was extremely beneficial for me. I feel that it has helped refresh my memory, especially when it comes to writing an essay." Yes?
Is it free?
It is. Yes, these are free for all students who enroll. Okay, so now I'm going to turn it over to Teresa. I was just so excited to get rid of the microphone.
Hi, welcome. So as far as the math goes, it's a little different because in the English we have, do you want to say, there's the 2 scores, and in math it's just kind of like, where did you place? So a lot of our students obviously are placing into the 085, 095, which is essentially the pre-algebra and or the elementary algebra. We offer kind of like a 6-credit combo type thing where it's the pre-algebra with the elementary algebra. That's our 085. And then we have the just 095, 3 credits, elementary algebra, and those are the 2 developmental courses that we offer at Middlesex that then the student can move into 137. So when the student comes to Middlesex to take the AccuPlacer and places into 085 or 095, we offer them the option of taking these workshops. We do them in the summer and in the winter intersession. We do about 5 to 6 math in the summer, and I would say about 2 to 3 in the winter. And now that we have 2 years under our belt, we're kind of able to tweak it and see what times work better and that kind of thing. So we are trying to adjust and do what we need to do to address that. So essentially, just like with the English, prereq is that they've already taken the AccuPlacer. We know they've placed into developmental course, and now we want to try to get them on board to either get their skills up to par to where they need to be, and or for some students, they place into the 137. We do have an embedded 137, which is the ideal place that I would send any student, because I tell them I can't teach you math in 9 days. So essentially, we do recommend that they go that route if they do very well and place out of the developmental, so to speak, math skills. So as far as contact hours, it is 3 hours per day for 10 days, but the 10th day is when they take the AccuPlacer. So when they come in, I try to make them, calm, because math anxiety, I honestly taught high school for 11 years, and now is when I realize how bad it could actually be. Like, just seeing these students coming in crying. It's like, it's a roadblock, and it's terrible. And so I spend those 9 days trying to identify who those students are. And so I'm kind of not there just as a math person, but more of like, okay, you need to address this because it's going to, be a barrier for you that you don't want to have to face, because you have to take a math class and you have to get through it, and you can do it. So the nice thing about the workshops is it starts them from the bottom, even though sometimes it takes a hit to their ego because we're starting with fractions. Like, I learned that in elementary school. But I tell them, I'm building you from the concrete bottom up. And as you grow, you're going to take what you can, and then wherever you place, that's where you belong. And you need to accept it and be comfortable with it. Because some students, they think, I'm going to take this workshop, and ta-da, I'm going to be in 137. And I tell them, you have to accept it because you're building the house. You can't go from one floor to the next. So essentially, we have 27 classroom contact hours, in which 5 days I cover arithmetic, and the other 4 days is the elementary algebra. That's a lot to cover in 9 days. So what I do is to kind of mix things up, because 3 hours is a long time to do math. I kind of mix it up every day, but essentially I try to do like an hour where they work doing Khan Academy videos. So if anybody, if you're familiar with it, they're tutorials. And the nice thing about Khan Academy is they've built in practice sets. So they watch the videos, and then they get practice sets at the end. And ideally, they give you 5 questions, and then you get like a smiley face for each one that you get correct. And then if you've mastered it, then you're not doing like 20 problems. You do 5, you get the concept, move on. So I have a template of all the specific links that I want them to go to, and the practice sets that go. Because Khan Academy is pretty overwhelming if you look at it now, because they keep adding. So it's specific to what I want them to do, so it's focused and they're not overwhelmed. So every day we have those concepts, we focus on those concepts, they watch the videos, because some people love the technology. But then I also step in for an hour and I do my instructional piece to really reinforce it. What didn't you understand? Let's talk about it. And then the last hour, which I find to be the most valuable thing, is that I have them work in groups. And they get to know different people, and they work with different people, and they kind of gravitate. Like, if one's strong and one's weak, but they kind of have that personality that clicks, by the end of the workshop, literally, they're friends. So it's kind of like a win-win situation, especially for a student who's just starting college. This is a nice transition. They've made a friend, and they're learning math, so it's even better, right? So basically, that's how I structure my courses. Then, let's see what else. AccuPlacer is given on the 10th day. So that's that. You could go to the next slide. All right, so as far as challenges go, so because they are free, we've experienced, they go to an advisor says you should take these workshops, and then it's summer, right? So we'd rather be at the beach or on vacation or something like that. So unfortunately, we cap it at 20, right, because that's how many the room accommodates, and then unfortunately we get like 4 or 5 that don't show up, and they've taken a spot for somebody. So that is a challenge that we're trying to address. But the good thing is I'll get people that'll come and say, hey, your workshop is full. I really wanted to get in. I take down their name, or I get their email or something. First day, I send an email, come tomorrow, because if these other people don't show up, you're in. So I've been trying to really, make that open so that we don't lose spots for people that actually are motivated and want to make progress. The other challenge, I would say, is working with students who are at different math levels, because again, I'm taking in students that placed into elementary algebra and or placed at the other end of the spectrum really low on arithmetic. So I've had the advantage of, at some points, we've had some funding where we were able to have an assistant in the room, which has been very, very helpful. And typically it's a student, so if they feel intimidated that the instructor, I don't want to ask the instructor, they have a peer person, a student in there that's helping and they feel comfortable. And so it's two people, and it helps tremendously with the group work aspect of it. Again, a lot of material covered in a short amount of time. On the evaluations, most of the students will say that. What can we do better? And they'll say it's a lot to learn in the short amount of time. But I tell them that's why it's called fast track. All right, so I am going to go fast. Students who don't do work outside the workshop, this is another problem. They work full time, whatever, they don't want to do it. That's an issue. And then I tell them, I said, the dedication you put in is what's going to be the result in the end. If you dedicate yourself for 10 days, you eat, sleep, and walk math, I tell them you will progress, I promise you. And they always come back and say, thanks for the encouragement. And then the last thing I would say is a very hard struggle. How many people in here are math majors? Oh, me too. We get those students that are like, I can't do math. And I say, well, you know what? I can't play basketball. But if I wanted to, I could learn. So I try to encourage that. Just get that roadblock out. You can do math. You just have to start from the bottom and work your way up. And I'm here to help you. So just kind of getting over that test anxiety aspect, because even I had that, and I relate that, and I tell them that. I say, I took the SAT, maybe multiple times, because I'm not a good test taker. I get nervous. And so I try to help them with even test skills. And I say, just you being in this class is going to help you to feel that much more confident with the content, because then I give them, on the last day, I do give them practice tests. And when they realize, oh, I know how to do this, better than I did when I came in, then it builds their confidence, so it empowers them. So as far as successes go, I think it's a really nice way for a student who maybe had gaps from high school, they haven't been in school in a really long time. It's a really nice way to build from the bottom up, because like I said, I really do start from, the basic arithmetic, and we work our way up. Again, great refresher for students who haven't been in school for a long time. I kind of mentioned this third bullet when I was explaining the format of the class. Workshops can provide a great transition to college. They meet new people. They get acquainted with the school. I'm a face that then they might see in a classroom, because I also serve as a supplemental instructor. So it's a really nice way for them. And I think that's what's great about our jobs, is that we are out, we touch and we reach a lot of students, whether it's in a workshop, then they see us in a class, they see us out in the hall, we advise, we do various things where it's kind of like they know us and they get comfortable, and if they need something, they know where to find us. So it's kind of a nice point-to person that they kind of might be the first person they meet coming into college. And then some factual data. So I've been keeping data going back to 2013. I actually started in 2014, but prior to us being hired, they were piloting the concept. So I got that data as well. And as of summer of 2013, 248 students attended a Math Fast Track workshop, and 173 were eligible to move up at least one math course level. So, in the time, that you see that has passed, that's a lot of students that have been impacted. I have been monitoring them over the last 2 years. What math class did you take? What grade did you earn? And overall, I've been seeing that I would say about 3 out of 5 students who take a math course are successful. And, you look at that, there's 2 students that didn't pass, but we don't know their situation. We don't know why they withdrew. We don't know why they failed. It could be anything in life. It may not have been because they couldn't do the math. It could have been a life thing. So, but this is what I've generally seen from the data, and it's been definitely promising and very rewarding for both myself and just to see the students who progress and come back and come to our office, like even when they're like not even, in a math class or they're in a, upper math class, come back and say, I'm taking pre-calc, and I'm like, oh my God, really? like, how are you doing? And they're excited about it. So it's really great to see that they've gotten this kind of leg up and feel good about it. Yes.
What test scores to get into the fast track?
We accept anybody who places into the 085 or 095 for math, and for English,
We also accept
Yeah.
anyone who's
It's such a low 72.
we
Yeah.
try to target the people who are placing into English 096, so that would be anyone who scores below 71 in one or both of the scores that they take for the English academic portion.
Question. I don't know if at your institution you have this, but what about students? Let me back up. So when you take active placer, they either place in 085, 095, or credit bearing. Is there a category if they don't meet, let's say, the minimum threshold of 085?
they get placed into, for the math, they get placed into 085.
So that's the lowest that it's.
Yeah, that's the lowest that they, yeah. Then they have other options, like they have the adult ed if they want to do, they have, us, where we try to do, encourage the workshops. But
Yeah, we have no
The ma-
minimums on the math 085 or the English 096, which is actually one of our challenges.
Right.
We implement a minimum.
And then I have some just fast quotes to share with you that came from student evaluations. This course helped me understand 085, 095 topics clearly, and it has boosted my confidence. When I teach the course, I literally tell you, hey guys, I'm teaching you 085 today. And then once we transition, guess what? You're in 095 now today. 4 days later, and they're just like, what are you talking about? But I kind of let them know, as I'm teaching the concepts, where it comes from. The math workshop helped me to break down some barriers I have in math. I was not able to truly improve my course, but I was able to be introduced to what was expected of me and what I need to learn to improve in math. Again, I'm constantly telling them, you will gain something out of this. You will be more confident. You've been exposed to it. If you have to repeat 085, that's where you belong, and you'll feel more confident going in because you've seen this material. And then the last quote, great way to dust off the cobwebs for someone that hasn't done math in a while. Even if I don't place into a higher math, I feel much more prepared. So these are from the math side. I know, are we doing questions now or after? Yeah, go ahead.
What percentage of your students are incoming freshmen?
That I don't know. What percent are incoming freshmen? That I
I
don't.
would say almost all. I don't have a number on that either, but pretty much, especially in actually that's in the summer, it's almost
Yeah.
all of them. In the winter
Winter.
intersessions, a lot of the students for me are students who do not pass English 096. So the workshop is kind of the last frontier for them to try to move into a 101 level course.
And I have students that have waited till their senior year for the math. So that's why I kind of look like I don't know how many are freshmen. We have a lot of people that just avoid it. And then now it's like, oh gosh, I have to get my math done. So I think they kind of fluctuates.
I know there's two courses that students can place into, but there's only one fast track, and I think both of you pointed out that what happens is that you get students of all different abilities and range, or
Right.
that will fall into all in this one fast track. Have you guys thought about splitting it up?
Yeah, the English side has.
Okay.
We haven't implemented it yet, but we have talked about, because there are a lot of, especially, I don't know if any of you are familiar with the directions of the reading comprehension and sentence skills on the AccuPlacer, but they are very confusing. And if students don't prep ahead of time, it's very easy for some of them to just simply mess up or misread the directions. So yeah, we have talked about splitting into quicker workshops that would then get those students into the classes that they should actually be placed into versus kind of messing up the test and then being placed into a lower level class.
And with the math, if you're not familiar with AccuPlacer, when they start the math, they are not starting at arithmetic. They start at elementary algebra. That's where the test begins. They get 12 questions of elementary algebra. If they don't do well, then it places them backwards. So for me, I feel like I need to expose them to everything because in the event, whatever, they don't do well on the elementary algebra, I don't want them to do really bad on the arithmetic because shame on me, I didn't show, you know what I mean, I didn't go back. I feel like with math, it's a scaffold, and the number sense needs to be there, and so for math, I just feel like it's important that they see it all, and it's a progression. So that, what makes us different, I think, is even the way this test is formatted. Yes,
So the math, you're running the fast track for 10 days?
correct.
How many do you run this summer?
Summer, it's about 5 to 6.
5 to 6, and it sounds like you have a full class or a full,
Always, yep.
so that's,
It's a lot of
So it's
students,
about 120
so
students.
as far as recruiting,
right.
how are you recruiting?
We do it through revising, so Catherine and I, we have a flyer, we send it out to all the advisors. Down in the administrative offices, like registers and counselors, everybody knows about it by now, so they know to look, okay, developmental math, you should take this workshop. So that's how it's been getting out much more than it did at the beginning, from the beginning.
Just to add to that, on the actual printout of the AccuPlacer, it will encourage them to take the
Yeah,
workshops
right.
as well, depending on what their scores are.
You mentioned success rate or completion rate. What is your completion rate and success rate for advanced placement?
Well, that's, as far as like taking the next
Students
math
for the
class,
fast track it, what's the percentage that are completing
the
the
workshop,
fast track? Yeah.
well, 173 moved up at least one, over the last 2 years.
What, 085 is 6 credits?
6 credits. It's a combination of,
095, 095?
yes, correct, yes.
So when they pass that, they go into.
137,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, and I agree with the arithmetic thing, because it doesn't hurt.
Right,
I mean, anybody, most people that place even into 095 need arithmetic.
right. And the other thing is with the math, they can't use a calculator, so that becomes a problem, so they need to understand the number sense in order to get to it. We just have a lot to share.
Good afternoon. I'm Tami, Cristopher. I'm the director for our Meriden Center. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of our community partnerships regarding transitional programming and bridge programming for our developmental students. Our main campus located in Middletown. Our satellite campus is in Meriden, and we also occasionally offer classes on the shore and online, as you know. The 3 adult ed departments that we work most closely with are Wallingford, Meriden, and Middletown. And I'm proud to say we do have a reputation with grant funders and different state programs that we do play very nicely together. So we're very proud of that. There's a lot of collaboration going on. What I'd like to focus on today is really talking a little bit about the ICTP program, Intensive College Transitions Program. In early 2011, I was approached by 2 representatives, Senator Beth Bai and Kathy Abercrombie at the Meriden Center. They wanted to meet, so I thought it a good idea to call the president at the time, and that was the right move. They wanted us to be one of the colleges that worked in a pilot program to help bring adult education students up into college-level classes. So just briefly, this was the directive of the pilot program. It was awarded for 2 years. We've been refunded. We're in our 3rd refunding of authorization right now. We're still waiting to find out if our 2nd year in this package is going to be funded based on what's going on with the budget. But the partners are Meriden Adult Ed with Middlesex Community College, New Haven Adult Ed with Gateway, and Manchester Adult Ed with Manchester Community College. So those are the 3 pilots. And the purpose is to establish a pilot program to offer college preparatory classes with these 3 programs for adults who have obtained their high school diploma or its equivalent and require intensive post-secondary developmental education for purposes of easing the burden of community technical colleges and other institutions of higher education in this state that offer developmental education courses, and on students who are required to use educational loans, student financial aid, or grants to pay for developmental education classes. So not very clear at all. After talking with the senators and reading a little bit more into the bill, what we discovered is what they like us to do is make sure that these students are test ready to start college, which was a challenge for us with a few other things, but I'll get into those. So as I already mentioned, we did have a very good standing relationship. I'm going to talk a little bit about the Meriden one, obviously. We've had several different collaborative programs from middle school, even some of the preschools in town, and various different high school programs and a lot of other programs with our adult ed. So the basis for a good collaborative relationship was already there. And there were a lot of changes to this program over the last several years. As I mentioned, it was reauthorized several times. To start with, we really just sat down and said, how do we do this? a decision was made to go forward with the Pearson Accuplacer product to use My Foundations Lab as a computer-based model. There was a lot of collaboration between the adult education folks and our own math and English faculty to make sure we were offering what these students needed to be successful and get those test scores up a bit. But it did have several different iterations. What about the location? Currently, we're running it at both the Adult Ed Center as well as the college, and we flip-flop back and forth, offering the components, different components at different locations, depending on the time the program is offered, who has open space, where we can get the space most economically feasibly, and that type of thing. So we have a good relationship there. A lot of other things that changed with this program had to do with the time and the days that we offered. Our first go-round with this, it was 5 days a week, 4 hours a night, and it was just too much. The most successful complement of days and times that we found to be effective is 3 hours a day, 4 days a week. And we do offer this program in the evening. It's usually 5 or 5:30 to 8 or 8:30, depending on what's going on. That being said, we have added new components to the program. The basic structure of this program is the students are all required to take freshman seminar course, which is our college experience course, unless they've already taken it successfully at either our institution or another institution. If that's the case, they can take it again as a refresher if they like. The other two main components are the program are the math and the English refreshment, skills refreshment, again using the Accuplacer Pearson product. And it's competency-based learning. It's very student-directed. They're small groups. We recruit 25 students. We typically end up with about 17 very dedicated students. And there is an instructor and sometimes a supplemental instructor in the room with these students, meeting them at the level where they are and bringing them up as best they can, similar to what Catherine and Teresa talked about. We have added some additional pieces, as I mentioned. One is an ESL clinic. We borrow that ESL clinic from another grant program because this legislation did not allow for ESL instruction, and our college no longer offers an ESL program. So we're borrowing from another program. We also do not have services within this legislation to address any students that have disabilities per se, so there's no extra support there. So those students do work with our disability services on campus and any resources that the adult ed can provide with that. Two other pieces to this program that are added in are the STAR reading program and an additional math clinic. All of those additional pieces I just mentioned to you are offered during the day. So it really is dependent on what the student's schedule is and what they need, how much commitment level they have. One of the nice parts of this program is that we do accept on-course students, meaning if they go through the program once and they're successful in some aspect but not in another, but they've shown dedication and perseverance and attended, that they can go ahead and repeat the program. This is a completely free program. There is no charge to the students for any textbook material. They do receive 3 credits from the freshman seminar course, so that's an added financial bonus for them. And we've recently been able to add in an additional course after they successfully complete this semester, and it has been a digital graphic arts course. We wanted to get them out of the reading, writing, math equation and get them into something a little bit more, no offense, creative, hands-on, and something they can really jump into. Support for this program, people-wise, what we have noticed is that one of the most important things for the students in this program is a lot of wraparound services. So this legislation does have funding built in for a counselor. We now have 2 counselors that work in this program, and they are hired through Merit and Adult Ed. And of course, the students have any access to our retention specialists on campus and any of other career or academic support they need there. It's a very high-touch model. We try to focus on addressing any barriers prior to the start of the program, and one of the ways that we've done that is with a very specific interview process and an intake form. We have to let any student in this program that wants to be in this program that is a developmental level student. However, when we structure the interview, we don't really say, oh, you're in no matter what. We make them work for it. We let them know what the dedication level is. We do give them like a grit. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with the grit scale, and we go through perseverance and different strategies in that area. So we make our best guess to address some of these problems beforehand, but as you know, they do arise during the course of the semester, so we do have, like I said, a lot of wraparound services to address those as well. One of the things that this legislation, I think we could do a little bit better with this program, it sort of asks us to get the students test ready, and we've done that. On average, students are avoiding taking 1.8 developmental classes. We have about a 60 to 84% retention rate in this program, which is pretty good. I think that talks a lot to our counselors in that initial intake process. For math, we found that the arithmetic, people that need the arithmetic more than the algebra, much easier to move up more quickly, but that our folks that need a little bit more work in algebra that tend to be a little bit closer to the college level course, it's harder to bring them around. And with the English, it's a little bit opposite. The higher level students that are very close to our English 101, we're able to move those students through with a little bit more regularity than to try to begin to teach the basics of reading and writing and grammar. That's obviously taking us a little bit longer, so those tend to be our encore students that come back. Those encore students, if they do well in the math but not so much in the English, they can come back for just the English whilst going ahead and beginning their math career at the college and vice versa. But what I was starting to say is, and Dr. Bailey mentioned this in his talk, one of the pieces of this program that really could be improved was adding something in where not only are we getting the students up where their test scores are ready for college level, which they are, this bill, this legislation does not provide funding or expect us to follow these students through to their college career. So we do have a very high success rate. I think it's about 54% of moving at least one level up into, whether it's math or English, moving them up into either the second tier of developmental or credit-bearing classes. But at that point, that's really where it stops. There's no following them through. So if we look at the data on our end, it doesn't, again, align with the legislation. We do see we need to do some more work in that area with sticking through them, transitioning them a little bit better into degree programs and things of that nature. Yes? We do. We do. There, in the career or in the freshman seminar class, the components are career searching. They're exposed to different programs that we have. We have different speakers and presenters come in to talk about areas that the students might be interested in, our own faculty. We do a lot of resume writing and career searching. We use Focus for that quite a bit. It depends on the group of students, really. In my experience, there's a lot of flexibility with the course as long as you cover the basics, and those are career exploration, academic exploration, and process, and the other more specific skills related to college success, such as note-taking, memorization, time management, all of those things that really all of us can use if we're in college or not. Sure. No, that's a good question. That was one of the things we struggled with in the beginning, is how to arrange this. We wanted to get the most students in to take advantage of this funding. So what we do is we try to really target those students who need both, but if we do have some extra spaces towards the end of the class, then we'll reach out to those students that just need one or the other. We really want to maximize the amount of students that we have in the program. Thank you.
Yes. You used My Foundations Lab for the English and math.
Yes.
Was it the Accuplacer in My Foundations Lab or just My Foundations?
Accuplacer. I'm not on that side of it. I don't work as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
ACCU.
And they've been great to work with. I mean, they'll come out and
Yeah.
give us trainings and all kinds of
So
things
they
on that.
take that, they take the acupuncture diagnostic and
Yes.
they get exempt out of poppy therapy.
Yes, and they're also in this program, the state requires that we report out on the adult ed CASAS scores for them as well, so they're taking the adult ed testing.
So if you're in both, then is it 6 hours a day? Do they do 3 hours of math and 3 hours of English?
That's another good question. No, what they end up doing is splitting their time. Well, they'll take the freshman seminar, it's usually one night a week for 3 hours or so, and then the other nights during the week, they will either focus more on math or English, depending. If they need both, if they're moving through the English more quickly, then there's a ability within this program for them to finish up with the English and then focus more time on the math. So it's very fluid in that way.
But it's all online self-paced, basically?
It is, but there's an instructor and oftentimes, depending on the funding structure, another supplemental instructor or tutor in the room.
To walk around and help them?
Walk around, and if they find, and I don't know exactly how you to do it, but if they find that there's a topic that is particularly difficult for a high percentage of the students, they'll do small group lectures on those topics.
Is the instructor from the college or from the adult ed?
Another good question. The instructors that we've had most frequently happen to be our adjuncts. And we have had some others. It's a little tricky. The instructors that teach at the adult ed is actually providing the English and the math instruction with our support and collaboration, but they have to be certified to teach adult ed. So we've been very lucky to have a few of our instructors that have either gone for their adult ed certification or have already been certified.
We had a program here, I was involved in it, and it was the collaboration with adult ed. And we had classes here, because we felt that students would feel more part of the community. I find it's more successful on campus as opposed to being at the adult ed center.
That's a good question. I do find that we try as often as possible to have the freshman seminar component at our college to introduce them to the college environment. And the way freshman seminar is structured, if we have a group presentation on, say, personal finance or time management, where we can hold that that particular class that day in a room where we can invite other students in. So general students in the college take advantage of that, and that's been very good and interactive. We haven't, as of yet, offered the math or the English at the college building. All of that has been at the adult ed. And that's basically because of schedule and because they want a good substantial piece of this program to happen with them as well. A lot of these students are very comfortable in that environment. A lot of them are coming from there.
Our classes were collaboratively taught by an adult ed instructor and a professor.
That's great. Yeah, I do say we have a lot of activities where there's an involvement with college administration or faculty and the adult ed folks. There's an extensive orientation. There's usually an award ceremony at the end. So the students do see the collaboration and the counseling. We go back and forth all the time on calling, who's the student, how come they weren't in class, those kind of things. Yeah, it works well. That's a good point. Yeah.
Did you have some of the same issues because it was free? Did you have people that drop out or?
We do. The biggest reason for the withdrawals, we like to get them withdrawn if possible, seems to be students who have been searching for work and school has been kind of a backdrop, so they get that job and they're out if it doesn't work with their schedule. Childcare issues and either personal student or close family mental or physical health issues. Those are the top three. Yeah.
Last year, Norwalk Community College started a pilot program, a summer reading program, and we had 60 students sign up. 11 were at too low of a level to take even the basic non-credit course. So they got moved into a different program. But of the 49 that participated, 64% of them moved into credit-bearing classes.
That's great.
What we found, and 83 attended the college full-time in the fall. And it was a mix of, there were some social aspects with academic component to it that was still social. And they did a project at the end. But what we found at the end of the first semester was that they had struggled. Do you provide some sort of resources for the students after they get into the credit-bearing classes?
Struggled.
They didn't do as well in Sweden.
Because they don't have all that support around them.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I was mentioning earlier. I would say one thing that could definitely improve this program, we're doing okay getting the test scores up. But one thing we can definitely improve this program is giving them a nice warm handoff to the college. If funding wasn't an issue and staffing wasn't an issue, a dedicated advisor that could continue to follow them through closely, but also, letting go of their hand a little. We don't want them graduating and then still needing a counselor, right? So, yeah, good point. Okay.
Donna, can you talk to the last?
Thank you. It's like a conch shell.
Well, just to start wrapping up, last year, with some of the PA 1240 funding that we had for transitional strategies with our adult ed, we decided to expand out
our ICTP program with some of our community partners. So we partnered or collaborated again with 3 of our adult ed facilities, which was Meriden, that Tami just talked about, Middletown, which is our closest facility, and Wallingford, which is kind of on the border of New Haven and our service area in Meriden. And what we ended up doing it was trying to expand it out to more of a 10-week model. So what we did was we formed different packages with each one of our individual partners and had a math fast track, we had the English, and we paired it with a freshman seminar. So if a student at the point of placement testing was identified as eligible for it, like we do with the math and the English, we're able to do at least some initial counseling to guide them into some possibilities. So if they were eligible for either a math and or English fast track, they could be eligible for this program, and they had the option of taking a freshman seminar, which would give them the 3 credits. So we targeted that, and then with each individual partner, we had varying degrees of support, and Meriden was one of our most developed service support, because we had tutoring, we had a counselor. Middletown, very similar. On a benefit, we had a social worker who was attached to the program as well. With Wallingford, because it was a much smaller one, we just tailored it down to size for that. But for the most part, because we've only run this 2 semesters. Last spring was our first time, and then we did it again last fall. So those are the 2 cohorts that went through, and then we're running it again. So last fall we had about 50% of the students who took the placement test at the end at least went up points in one area. Because as Catherine mentioned, there was a bit of a gap between the transitional level, you have the intensive, and then the next level of being embedded. And then we had about 50%, about half the students at least went up in math or English a level, which was significant for this group considering the foundational scores and Accuplacer that they were garnering, which was in the 50s or below oftentimes, because we're placing at the most foundational level. And then about half the students returned for the spring semester. So we're still kind of gauging ourselves with retention rates and how we can do that better. And then last spring, just to go back, we had about 28% of the students who took the test actually went up in one area, and then we had about 72% who took the test actually went up 1 level. So that was really significant for us. But our retention from spring to fall really dropped, and that was something we were still trying to work out, try to make better a little bit for us. Some of the same challenges that we experienced in the fast tracks are the same types of challenges we experience ultimately with the packages with our adult ed partners as well. And they're structured very similar to ICTP, so we can do it again. But overall, the students who completed it were very satisfied. We did have some students who were on the fence about whether or not it should have been less time or more time, or some who wanted a little bit, some additional freebies like a computer or things like that, because most of the program they didn't have to pay for, essentially any of it. And that really kind of gives you the next step, which is...
Well, just to wrap up, really what's next for us is funding. These are free of charge, as we've said, either through the appropriation from the legislature for ICTP, or with our on-campus and adult ed workshops. It's been through the Public Act 1240 money, and we all know what's happening with the state budget. But we are committed to offering these experiences free of charge to students because we believe that they do benefit them and get them into college level classes earlier or sooner than they would have otherwise. And our data is still kind of a little raw right now, and we're kind of looking at that. We are talking about, do we utilize these workshops as required labs for our embedded level courses, or even in some cases for college level courses for students who might need a bit of a refresher, and attach them to a required lab rather than saying, go to the Academic Success Center. So it would be much more structured. Do we put a placement floor on our, I got to get these right, intensive level, Math 085 and English 096? Right now there is no floor, but if we do add a floor, which I believe is now allowable, that would then require these workshops for students. And then sort of the logistics versus successes. To run this requires a lot of logistical support, a lot of hand-holding with our students. You know, all kind of well worth it, I think, given some of the data that we've been able to collect. But it's a matter of keeping that going and keeping the spirit of why we want to offer these workshops going, too. The adult ed centers have been great partners to work with. It does spread us out quite a bit with these folks, but they really have been wonderful, and to the point where we're using one of their counselors is now on campus helping students in English 096. We contracted with them to have them bring the wraparound services to our intensive level English class. So with that, I know we're probably a little bit over time, and if anybody left breadcrumbs to get us back to where we started, we could probably answer some questions on our walk back, but anything burning before we adjourn?
Are these housed through or facilitated through non-credit?
Yes. These are, all the workshops are scheduled as non-credit courses through the non-credit system, and we have been trying to adjust the grades that students are assigned, partly for reporting out through the Board of Regents office, but also that gives us right now we've been doing pass-fail, right? So, but trying to maybe go to either a letter grade or some other system that would allow us to show students who are maybe making progress but not yet ready to move on. So, anything else? Well, we thank you for your attention. It was a lot to share, but thank you.